The next item is item 12, Hearings Panel Report to the Council on the Duvauchelle Treated Wastewater Options. Councillor Davidson, over to you as the Hearings Panel Chair.
Thank you, and I'll take the report as read. I'd just like to thank the fellow panel members, Councillor Cotter and also Tori Peden, the Chair of the local community board, and staff for all the work that they've done. Obviously, this had overwhelming support for the option that we're recommending, and was supported by the key stakeholders, including Onokururanga and the Akara Golf course.
Thank you. So you'll move that?
Yeah, happy to move.
And seconded by Pauline. Are there any questions? Andrew?
Thank you. And these are questions that I'd put through to staff already some time ago. So probably would be, in fact, I'd indicated that I would ask them in the meeting. So referring to section 8.2.5 in the report, the panel queried whether the resource consent for the irrigation system should be put out for public notification. Officers advised that resource consent may be limited, notified to immediate neighbours only. Additionally, Environment Canterbury will assess effects on the environment, including effects on neighbours as part of the resource consent process. All well and good. My question was, what does may be notified to immediate neighbours only mean? Does that mean it could be, or that it must be, or that it might be? So just some clarification as to what that wording actually means, because it could be read in a number of different ways. And realising that affected parties may be more than just immediate neighbours. There are some views, and I don't know to what extent they're held, but there are certainly some views that have been expressed to me by people in the community that believe that the notification should be broader than is suggested by this paragraph. So I'm just interested in the advice that was provided to the panel and what that clause actually means.
Yeah. Essentially, the decision of is it limited notification or wide open notification to all the public is up to ECAN. It's not our decision. So the term maybe is leaving that open for ECAN to tell us what their position is when the resource consent goes out.
So the role of the panel in this regard is to realise that ECAN have got that future determination, that future decision to make. There is nothing we can do at this stage to decide, suggest, request that a particular type of notification, a particular level of notification occur.
We can, as the applicant, make a decision to make it publicly notified or seek one or the other. Ultimately, that's ECAN's decision, but we really want to progress the option before we understand what the impacts are and how wide that notification needs to go.
And the limited notification to immediate neighbours only, does that take into account that there may be affected parties that are not immediate neighbours?
You're right. It could go beyond immediate neighbours, so people downstream who might be...
Turn your mic on. That's it.
No,
on.
Green.
That's it. Green.
Right, sorry about that. Yeah, we could review that wording because it could include people downstream who are over the road from the site and aren't an immediate neighbour but may be affected. So changing the wording to something like affected parties would be appropriate.
I thought the applicant could ask for public notification, and that would then happen as a matter of course under the RMA.
We can.
Okay, so that's the answer to your question.
Yep, but the advice provided as to why we wouldn't do that is the advice that's contained in the report. Staff don't believe that it would be helpful to publicly notify.
That's right.
Okay. My second question relates to the wording of the final resolution, where we request Notes other concerns raised by submitters about potential environmental effects would be addressed through the resource consent process. My belief is that we could strengthen that. We could I was suggesting that we could request staff ensure that other concerns raised by submitters are addressed through. The advice I got back in this email that's in front of me suggested wording recognises that concerns raised by submitters about potential environmental effects and request staff ensure that these are addressed through the resource consent process. It's essentially the same as what we've got there, but it just strengthens it. And if the meeting were comfortable with that changed wording, I'd like to suggest, and I've spoken to Mike about this, that we change the wording of clause resolution 8 to this wording which has been suggested by staff.
Should it be the application process, because we don't control the giving of the resource consent?
Thanks, I was agreed.
Oh, I read your mind.
All right, so recognises that concerns raised by submitters about potential environmental effects.
You've got the words
It's all.
already
It's
there,
most
just
of it's
delete. Yeah.
there. And requests staff ensure that these are addressed through the resource consent process.
Application process. We don't
Yep,
grant the consent.
the resource
Yeah. No, resource consent application.
consent application.
process.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Now on
It's
the
okay with the mover and seconder?
Staff are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
staff provided
Staff
that
are-
wording to
yeah.
me. Yep. So on the first one, clearly it would be open to me if I wanted to move an amendment that the resource consent be publicly notified. I'm keen to test whether there would be a seconder for that if I did. Yanni. So can I then move an amendment that the resource consent be publicly notified?
Yeah. I would like staff advice on that before we consider it, though.
Yep.
In terms of delivering the project quickly and effectively, we'd like to reserve the right to have a limited notification, but we've got a bit of water to go under the bridge, so if we can see a compelling reason outside the valley where someone's going to be affected, then we could open that up or expand the limited notification. We'd just be cautious of locking ourselves in one way or the other at this stage.
So almost, yeah.
Can I ask what the concern is?
Andrew, why do you want that?
Yeah, what is the concern?
So there are people in the community who have approached me who are concerned that the notification is too limited, particularly if it's to immediate neighbours only, that there will be other affected parties, and that there's benefit in people being able to be involved in the notification process, and therefore the community's taken on a journey rather than people feeling shut out, which has been what's expressed to me.
Are these property owners or interest groups?
I'm sorry?
Are these property owners that are adjacent to the...
No, these are people who are not immediate neighbours. And there's a concern that the notification will be to immediate neighbours only. I mean, I appreciate the advice, but I'm also cognizant of what I'm hearing from people in the community, and we want this to be supported. We don't want a battle like we've had with other projects.
So is there somewhere in between the proposal that it's at least limited notified, so that it's beyond the immediate neighbours but picks up that broader one without going to full notification? Is there something in between?
I mean, could it be notified, for example, to the Duvauchelle community, the people in that? I'm not suggesting it needs to be notified to the world at large. Is there a way that we could have it notified to those in the Duvauchelle community who would feel that they were affected? What I want is for the community to be part of this.
An intermediate solution, because I don't feel like that there's support for full public notification, but if there's something in between this limited notified, which is more intentional, to a description of the limited notification.
Through the hearings panel, I mean, I thought it was really good public participation and connection and involvement. So I didn't think there'd been an issue.
People are concerned that it's immediate neighbours only.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we need to check that with the mover and seconder. So, Sarah?
Thanks. I'm just wondering, through the resource consenting process, do mana whenua automatically part of the resource consenting process, or was there only input through submissions?
You've just switched it off.
Beg your pardon, we'll leave it alone. To date, they've expressed their support for the scheme, so we don't see them as a party who would submit to oppose it. But
No, but if there are people, like if we go broadly out and people are submitting against it, then do mana whenua get the opportunity to be submitting in support of the consenting process?
yes, but they would get that under
They get that anyway, just checking,
limited anyway.
Yeah.
So is there an in-between position, or is this just an amendment?
Yeah, no, I know, but there are people in the community that are concerned that unless we sort this today, it may end up being notified only to immediate neighbours, and that is a possible outcome. I mean, what if we changed it to notified to the whole, notified as a minimum to the whole of the Duvauchelle's community? And that then leaves how that translates technically to staff, but it sets an expectation of to whom it will be notified.
The risk I could see is you start including 3 or 4 bays over as part of the Duvauchelle community. Are they immediately affected? That might be questionable. Will it delay the consent application and introduce a lot more work for us and a lot more churn? Yes.
So what wording can we come up with by way of an amendment or something that's acceptable to mover and seconder that allows it to be more than just immediate neighbours, that sets an expectation that it will be more than just immediate neighbours at the moment, but that it's not wider than those people that live in that immediate, that are there in that immediate Duvauchelle community, and it doesn't expand to the other bays and people that are not directly affected?
We can take out the immediate neighbours, which is what you've already done. So limited notification would imply affected parties. So you could change it to application as limited notification to affected parties.
So if we added 2 affected parties, that's more than immediate neighbours, and it's not likely to be broader than the whole community, the whole Duvauchelle community.
That's correct. That's a between, yeah.
So that sounds as though it addresses at least the biggest part of the concern that's been expressed to me, and it's an acceptable outcome for staff.
Are the mover and seconder happy with that to be incorporated in the resolution? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yanni.
Thank you. Can I ask what odour assessment or modelling has been done? Because in the report under 8.23, it says that mana whenua have raised concerns around timing of irrigation and odour. And then staff say advise that odour risks are low given the level of treatment. But I just want to know what modelling you've done to come to that conclusion.
We haven't done detailed modelling of odour or that sort of thing. What we're seeking to do is take the organic out the water, so there isn't a source for odour, which is why we believe there wouldn't be significant odour from this exercise. But it's
I guess for those of us who have dealt with communities where odour has been an issue, and there's been an assumption that there's, and I appreciate it's not really the wastewater treatment plant. Obviously, that's got
It's
the
a
fire,
completely
but
different issue.
the organics plant,
Yanni.
which at the time the decision was made, there was concern around the level of odour modelling. So, yeah, I'm just trying to get some understanding of what the process is then that you will go through, because I think that directly impacts on the notification question. Because if you know who's likely to be impacted, then obviously you'll notify.
At high level, there's a technical assessment done by Baker, and the outcome is that effects will be very minor.
Right.
Yeah.
in terms of odour.
Odor, yes.
Yeah.
Giving the high level of the treatment, and also other wind assessment and the distance, and between our irrigation area and the neighbour. Yeah. This a high level assessment.
And through the consent process, will there be odour modelling done to show what the impact could be on the community?
It may not be modelling, but we would have to demonstrate there wouldn't be an odour issue and what controls and systems would be in place if something happens. What action do we take? So it would be highly unlikely for a wastewater process not to have scrutiny on odour.
The water is to be treated to a very high level. When it is irrigated and the people still can play golf, so that water quality level is very high, and the odor, it can't be odor.
Yeah. And just in terms of the notification, so like the limited notification, I mean, council could publicly notify it if it chooses to. It's our call as the applicant.
We can
We've
offer.
just had a long discussion about that, and we've got an agreed position here. So just please, can you focus your questions?
I'm just trying to understand, again, because I wasn't on the hearing panel, but in terms of if it was publicly notified, what the concern would be around other bays making submissions.
Yanni, we have already discussed that. Staff have already advised that the delays that would be caused were of significant concern to them. So they've already identified that. There's been a discussion that's occurred around an amendment, and it has now been changed in the way that it's being notified. So, and if you want to move an amendment to make it publicly notified, then you'll have to find a seconder for that. But I don't want to, I want staff to focus on questions related to the issue.
Yeah, I guess from my experience though, like with limited notification, it is a very narrow threshold about who can be notified.
It's limited notified to affected parties. That's very clear.
Okay, and just the final question can I ask is around, I know in the consideration and deliberation of the submissions there is a section on engagement and collaboration with mana whenua, but in the actual report itself, I can't see the normal thing that council would have, which would be the impact on mana whenua. And so just given what we've heard lately around our decision making, particularly around Three Waters, I'm just curious as to why we don't have a section around impact on mana whenua, and whether we have any joint decision making that we would do, like that fundamental shift in terms of decision making rather than just we've consulted.
In the working party, which looked at the various options and where we could go, mana whenua actively involved in that process. So it was quite a collaborative approach up till then. There is a attachment to the report, which has got a letter of support from Ngāi Tahu, and there was I believe a cultural impact assessment done through MKT in the sort of early investigations phase. So Anuku has been well in the mix right throughout the process.
And they are supportive.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it up for debate. I'll put the motion. All those. Oh, no.
Sorry, just quickly. I think this is actually quite an important decision we're making today. But first, I'd just like to note actually this was well supported from the community, which was really pleasing to see. And actually, one of the reasons why we put in 7 was we actually wanted to ensure it wasn't, non-notified. Actually, that the affected parties, the community, did get an opportunity to actually be part of the process moving forward. So that was the concern, and that's why we put that on. But I think what we need to recognise here is actually with this decision, it'll be the final decision where we actually commit to removing all the wastewater out of the harbours, both Whakaroa and Littleton Harbour. So this is actually a really important day. Thanks.
Yeah, it is a big step. Right, I'll put Andrew.
Yep, just very briefly, this is and as Mike has said, this is a significant decision. This is a conversation that's been going on with this community for some time. Clearly, the hearings panel has done a good job, and there's been good engagement with the community. The spirit of the matters I raised earlier is around making sure that the community continues to be part of the process and continues to support what we're doing here. And you know, in an ideal world, particularly with these small communities, that's exactly what will happen, and that's what needs to happen. So thanks to the hearings panel for the work that they've done. The results of this in terms of best practice, in terms of cultural values, in terms of getting the wastewater out of Akaroa Harbour are exactly the direction we want to be moving in. It's great to see this decision in front of us so that we can be making further progress towards that. So yeah, I'm supportive of the way that this has landed today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I want to acknowledge the work that's been done on this, and particularly the work with mana whenua. And I do think that it would be important, if this goes through today, that council does write to Minister Megan Woods and Minister Nanaia Mahuta, just showcasing this as an example of where we are working with mana whenua to get good outcomes around Three Waters. I think this is a positive decision if this goes through today around coming up with a solution that addresses the issues that have been raised for a long time and looks towards a better environmental outcome.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.